Bob, I was reviewing my files the other day, and the Army Corps of Engineers sent you a letter, or a couple letters, about the fact the company has to consider alternatives before they dump 3 billion pounds of acid mine waste into those high-quality wetlands. And Mike, have you thought about meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers? They're in Waukesha instead of, you don't have to go to Traverse City to meet with them. And start them, educating them about the alternatives, like bringing in magnetation to clean up the piles around Montreal. There's a lot of other places to get iron ore than this beautiful place. So, have you thought about talking to the Army Corps about that?
Let me answer the first part of the question, and then I'll pass it on to Mike. Let me say that the Corps of Engineers has communicated to the governor in the last 3 years, has communicated to the governor and the state legislature no less than a half a dozen times that they are deeply dissatisfied with the way in which the legislature is weakening its wetland mitigation policy, which conflicts with federal mitigation and wetland protection policy. Number two, the legislation which the company wrote, and let's clear this up right now. Mr. Seitz is absolutely correct on the technicality that the legislative reference bureau drafts the language, but it is the policymakers who write the language. I have in my hand a draft that was written by the company attorney for the company, and the legislative committee had scheduled a public hearing on this bill even before he had read it or the public had seen it. Second of all, I have the amendment to that bill, which was eventually adopted by the Joint Finance Committee and eventually defeated with the help of Senator Schultz on the 17-16 vote the day after, or the evening, which the company said Wisconsin doesn't want us, we want to leave the state. That's this bill here. And the quote by Mr. Fitzgerald that evening was that the company will make no more concessions and seek no more compromises on the legislation. Let the company write the bill and essentially gave them veto authority over what the conditions in the legislation were. So the Corps of Engineers has made it very clear that they will certainly come up and look at the wetlands to see how the mapping is taking place, but they will not begin to participate in the review of the application until the company applies, which means that this company, by the way, it's not going to apply. If they apply next year, I'd be very surprised. They are not done with their wetland delineation. They have not begun to do hydrological testing. They have dozens of projects that they have to complete before they can submit an environmental impact report. And it's only when they submit their application that the feds will sit down and begin to review it. The state, because the company insisted on a 420-day review process, the Corps of Engineers has told the state of Wisconsin that it takes them 3 to 5 years to do an environmental impact statement after they apply. So the fact of the matter is the Corps has made it clear that they are unhappy with the way it's done. They are not going to be engaged with the state of Wisconsin on any details of the wetlands, in which they are going to make ultimately many of the decisions until after the application. So there's really no real point in sitting down with them on the details because they don't know them. The key is EPA that has authority under the Clean Water Act to enact this 404. And we want the focus, as Mike has said, back on the science on that watershed. We need to talk about what's at risk. Bill Williams stood on Mount Whittlesey with a reporter from the Wisconsin State Journal and looked over this wonderful landscape created by nature a million years ago and said, we can engineer anything. That's what we're up against. Trust us, we can engineer anything. We need to have the discussion with the feds who have a trust responsibility to protect that resource. So the critical conversation is with EPA. Mike, I don't know if you wish to add to that.
Yeah. You gotta love Senator Jauch.
Yeah.
the Army Corps and met with the colonel. You know, there's definitely some concerns there, as much as I think they're expressing, like the senator said, that they're going to take an autonomous approach away from, you know, that notion of being streamlined for certainty, like the state of Wisconsin. They're like a lot of other federal entities. They're stretched very thin. There's a lot of work to be done, and of course, as we all know, water is a huge issue everywhere. That's only going to get, you know, more and more complex and become an even bigger issue in the future from quality and quantity standpoints. So, similar to the Wisconsin DNR trying to handle, you know, this catastrophe, there's definitely concerns at the Army Corps level as far as their staffing and their turnover and things like that. But we're having conversations to try and educate and keep them in the loop on what's going on. So we'll continue to do that.
Tough act to follow down there. I want to talk a little bit on this. Not that what's happened so far. I mean, I've had, from the very beginning of this, living in Mount Wisconsin, you guys know we're right at the foot of this mine. I mean, everything's going to come right down the Bad River, right through Mellon, Wisconsin, towards the tribe. Well, we'll go back just a little bit here. I remember when I first started to get involved in this, and I think I just got on as chair in the county board, and that was my first term. And I didn't really get overly involved until I really started to find out what was going on. Well, I got a phone call from Bill Williams on some stuff he'd like to get done, and through the county, and asked me if I would support it. And I said, well, I really don't know, Bill, that much about it. I don't want to get involved in it until I find out more about it. Well, needless to say, it didn't take me long to find out more. I'm going to tell you something right now. GTEC does not want anybody to know what they're doing in the Penokees. Am I right, Grandma? Yeah. And she keeps an eye on it. I'll tell you what, we started out, and I was thinking about it way back. We passed 2 ordinances. You guys know about them. We got a mining ordinance and we got a bulk sampling ordinance. When they started bulk sampling in Iron County, I got a phone call from Bob Seitz. He said, just to let you know, Pete, we're not going to bulk sample in Ashland County. So I said to him, I said, Bob, did that ordinance have anything to do with that? And there was a big pause. I thought he hung up on me. There was a big pause, and he comes back and he says, I'll put it this way, it didn't help matters any. So that goes to show you, when you stand up to them, it makes a big difference. And we're not done standing up yet. We've got 2 ordinances in place. And guess what? We're going to be looking again real soon for another one. Because that's the only thing that people understand is a law. And they don't want oversight on anything they do. I guarantee it. So, as far as I'm concerned, we'll fight to the bitter end on this. Charlie's my right hand, my left hand man. He's backed me right from the very beginning on this. The whole county board, pretty much the whole board with the exception of maybe 5 people, have backed not just myself, but the ordinances we put in place. And they meant something. People don't think they did, but they meant something. Bill Williams, exact words he said when they adopted the mining ordinance. If you think for 1 minute that I'm going to give you guys $100,000 to mine in Ashland County, you got another thing coming. Right from Bill Williams' mouth. And I said back to him, Bill, it's real simple. You either pay for it or you don't mind. That's it. But the bottom line, I didn't get a chance to really tell him. It would have never gone through the committee to start with. So I just let it lay right there.